hit the world, we had just opened our chain of groceries. And so in terms of deliveries and in terms of demand for fresh produce, it's extremely high. It's also raining, so we also have floods, and also it's high time farmers are planting. But in general, I can say 80% of the farming industry has really been affected negatively.
Right. Wow. 80% has been affected negatively, you said?
Yes, yes.
Right. Almost sounds like the negative outweighs the positive then.
Yes, for some it has been positive. For those who, you really have to be very versatile in your approach in the industry, especially as a farmer or in the industry. But just not very easy though.
Okay, great. We have our final participant speaker, Jesse of Farmkart. Hi, Jesse.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. Thanks for joining, and I'm looking forward to an insightful and educating conversation with you guys. So just to recap, this is the first of series that hopefully it wouldn't be for too long. The idea is that COVID is what everyone is focusing on now, and talking about the virus and the negative impact, but we just must remember that there's life after COVID. And for those that suffer from anxiety and are just focusing on all of what is coming at them in terms of the numbers and the numbers of people with the virus, the numbers of deaths, and all the negative news, oil prices crash, I think it's also important to also shed the light, like Noah has just briefly mentioned, opportunities, putting yourself in the right position, as you've mentioned, being versatile. So just trying to be optimal in taking the best out of the horrible situation that we're in. So initially, I'll just start with a few questions directed to each person, and then we would go into the general pool of questions where it will be a panel style where I'll ask and I'll get a point of view from Jesse, from Noah, as well as from Ify. So to kick things off, I will start with Jesse. Jesse, you founded Farmkart, which has really done so well. I mean, I became aware of Farmkart by being an investor in Farmkart, which is a crowdfunding platform. And you started with catfish, now you're in poultry farming. I mean, when you started it, when you left your employment I believe you were a civil servant. So when you left your employment, did you actually think that it would do as well as it has done?
Thank you. Hi guys, Ify and myself. Thank you guys for having me, guys. For me, it was, I think nobody actually knows what the future holds. So I really didn't know that I'll be here. Honestly, it wasn't planned out. Mm-hmm. I think we just hope that the future will hold good things for us. But starting out leaving where I was working was like, I didn't even plan leaving immediately. I had issues because I was working and running the farm at the same time. But because you can't do two things at the same time, like the philosophy I have is you can't be a part-time person and expect full-time results. Yeah, I think you need to just put yourself into doing things better. So for me, I was working and having the thing run and ventured into some issues, and I had to just leave and just focus on it. So from where we are and where we are right now, honestly, I couldn't emphasize, but I'm super grateful. And what has been is just focus, like key focus on what you wanted to do and just keep on showing up no matter the challenges you face. So because in our sector, there's a lot of challenges. So for me, it was just sticking through it and having the best, hoping that you would come out on the other side of it better. So it's same philosophy I have with the COVID thing. Nobody thought or planned that COVID would happen. So even the experts, nobody planned that it was going to be a COVID in 2020. We all had this dream of 2020 is our year of great. 2020 is our year of great. So same idea I still employ in my if nobody could plan that COVID was coming, you can't plan what's going to happen in the next 6 months. It's not possible. You're just going to be hopeful. Same thing with your business. So anything experts will say in the next, because there's a lot of webinars and videos popping up everywhere. COVID, aftermath, after COVID, aftermath, COVID, aftermath, COVID. But the point is, we really don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. We just have to just see how we can just hang in there and do what we have been doing all season.
Great, awesome. Thanks for that, Jesse. I'll now go to Ify, who is from Nourishing Africa, which is you have a bird's eye view of startups and just the ecosystem in the agricultural scene. Being also associated with Sahel, which who has been part of a lot of notable agricultural projects from a consultancy point of view. So, I mean, I guess my question would be, what trends did you see pre-COVID? So how did you see the industry changing? And do you have any, not to speculate too much about the future, but do you have any inclinations on what the next year could be for agriculture?
I think for us, so let me start by saying thank you for having me on. I think this is an interesting and important conversation to have. And for us at Nourishing Africa, we engage with entrepreneurs in the agriculture and food landscape across Africa. And we work to try and help them scale by providing resources and tools in doing so. And part of what we've been doing lately is we've been asking the simple question as to how have you been faring during this time? And we've seen that 50% of the entrepreneurs in the industry have either closed temporarily or altogether because of the crisis. And when we look deeper into who has stayed open and why, we find that it's those that somehow within their business model incorporated technology and innovation in how they survive, how they engage in their processes, how they engage with their staff, and how they get their products or services out there. And the ones that have stayed open and or trying now to reopen, even during the crisis, are those that have now found ways to incorporate tech and innovation into their business model after the fact and after the outbreak. So I think moving forward, particularly in the sector, those that will survive and thrive thereafter are those that have demand-driven products and services, because at a time like this, people are not looking for niche products, for products that are nice. It's very much about what do we need. We're entering a global recession and it's going to be tough. So whatever you're producing or whatever service you're providing needs to be demand-driven. It needs to incorporate tech and innovation. And I think we're moving into a very digital marketplace ecosystem when it comes to agriculture and food. So you have to leverage on tech, you have to leverage on advertising and marketing and or figuring out how you're branding your products, because people can't just come to your store anymore. They can't, if they don't know where to find you online, you will not be found together, because that's where we are. So that's basically it.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's a very interesting perspective in the sense that, you know, without being, you innovate or die, basically. And that's been true before COVID, and it's more so true now, where, you know, we only have offline, online interactions. There isn't really in-person interactions anymore. So yeah, that's an interesting point of view. And that flows very smoothly into my next question for Noah. Noah, you've been a big leader, I mean, even recognized by Facebook for your community leadership endeavors. And I wonder how your relationship with young farmers has changed, because you've always been a big advocate for youth agripreneurs, you know, getting, because we know that youth unemployment is very high on the continent, and you've been a big advocate in mentoring farmers and mentoring young people. How do you see that changing, you know, having, you know, the successes that you've had before COVID? Do you think that's going to have a negative impact now? Do you think people will be scared or more excited to go into this industry? You're on mute, Noah. Sorry.
Sorry. Thank you for having me. I think initially I got scared when this started, and I know all of us got scared. We first of all got scared. Will I get it? You know, will I? You know, hospitals became the places that you don't want to go to, and then the biggest scare came when now there was lockdown. You know, I think most countries have locked down. You cannot go to this county and this other county. That became scary. But what really scared me the most is that I could not go and visit farmers anymore. I could not go and visit these young people that I've been mentoring anymore. I've visited more than close to 4,000 farmers in 2.5 to 3 years. Now this has been 2 months. I have only visited my farm, you know. So again, what Ify has said, we have to embrace technology. I know one of the questions that I've been asked before is, why do you rely on online interaction with farmers? And now I think the time has actually come. I think we just started it a bit earlier. We know we've been communicating on Facebook with a lot of farmers, close to 145,000 farmers across Africa. But even more so, there's also the other farmers who are not online, close to 400,000 farmers who are not online per se. But again, it is good for us to define what is online, what is technology, what is digital, because I think there's a mix. Sometimes we confuse all these things. With the COVID currently, I think it is really affecting farmers who did not embrace any technology. So for me, with my background in tech, I can actually say just using the word technology would make the biggest difference, because sometimes you would go on Google, but you're not on Facebook. So you'd still get information digitally, but you're not on Facebook. So online for me is the online interaction, Facebook asking questions, like what we have right now, the discussion that we have right now. As I started earlier, I mentioned 80% of farming activities in Africa especially has been affected very negatively. Reason being, if you look at trainings, we normally conduct our trainings. We are not conducting any trainings, face-to-face trainings. We are very strong advocates of physical, practical trainings, which is now out. We have now switched into our media unit, our media department, where now we're developing training content. Yes, practically, but now we just have to showcase it out there. And so that again, in Africa, it becomes a bit of a challenge, because not everybody will be able to afford bundles, data bundles, that becomes challenge. So we also have to devise other methods of how we can be able to communicate this. The other thing is, unless now you become versatile, as I started off, I mentioned, unless you become versatile and start transforming yourself, transforming your farm into a business, so that now you can start looking at, how do I market my produce? How do I talk to farmers? How do I engage with, if you are in the industry as an expert, as an agronomist, how do you engage? How do you engage with the farmers? How do you even sell your inputs to farmers? But when looking at it from a farmer perspective, I've been a farmer, I've never felt so sad like I feel now, because you have to get a letter authorization to go and collect fertilizer if it's in a different county. Like for us in our farm, we are in the middle of 2 other counties, so that is affecting other farmers. Transportation is crazy. You cannot just transport your goods now. You cannot even plan to transport, because you need special licenses. You need special letters, and that hence why I said we have been affected 80% negatively. The 20% that is there is those farmers who thought and reacted very quickly, either starting a WhatsApp group, either starting a Facebook page, or any other interaction that buyers, households, the neighbors can adapt very fast. I know Ify has mentioned that she has most people have closed down, and it is true. Most of the time, farmers close when they don't get markets. Most of the time, they close when they are not able to manage their farm well. But now we are facing a scenario where you are even scared of going to your farm, because you do not know whether you will carry the virus or you get the virus. Most farmers are using public means. Very few of us in Africa can afford vehicles to go to our farm. Most of the young people that I mentor and farmers that I work with, again, are doing other jobs and then switching and then doing agricultural farming just as a side hustle or a side job. So now they don't have the main source of income where they can be able to divert part of it into the farms. So again, 80% affected negatively, 20% quite active. I'm seeing quite a lot of active farmers, but there's so much and that we can do as a team to see how best we can be able to assist farmers.
Great. Well, that's a very, I love that detailed response. And, you know, it's a shame that farmers are, businesses have to close as a result of the pandemic, which is not surprising, and it's something we're seeing all across the globe. But for farming, because that's an essential service, there are a number of articles. In fact, in DD of Sahel wrote a very interesting article that actually echoed my thoughts. And she actually said, the virus might not be as great a risk as the risk of hunger, because if we are unable to feed ourselves, that is truly a big risk. And we've already seen some countries holding back exporting food. Vietnam has placed the ban on exporting rice. So what then happens if, first of all, we're not food secure. We do not provide, we do not produce enough food for the country. That's one of the things that Jesse's company Farmkart is addressing, and of course what Noah as well is addressing. So if we now then stop producing, isn't that a bigger a risk to manage? So I guess the question then is, how do you think we can beat this? How can we stay on top of this? Prevent farmers who are an essential service to actually provide food from actually continuing their endeavors, like continuing farming, being able to go to the farm, being able to continue producing food for the economy. Jesse, I wonder if you have any ideas, given that that's one of the things you're doing.
Okay. For me, I think it's a two-way thing, and it has to do with the government, and it has to do with the farmers themselves. Why I'm not a fan of the government, but anyway, you need them in this.
Not all of us.
We need a very long call for that, I guess.
I'm not a fan of them, but the reason why I call them in this short is because one thing is for the farmers to produce food. Second thing is for people to buy this food. Now, people are out of work. People are not making money. Buying power is reducing on a daily basis. Now, if farmers keep on churning out the food from the farms, who's going to buy them? So the government has a very huge role to play. Very huge role to play. They're the only ones who can come in and say, okay, fine, let's bridge the gap between the people who are buying and the people who are producing. And if that connection is not there, if that bridge is not there, there's going to be a problem. Because one, the farmers will not be able to produce. And even though they produce, they will not be able to sell. And that's going to be cut. So for me, I feel that is where the challenge is. Now, for instance, we run our farms, we sell products. Now, we've seen buying power reduce on a daily basis. In fact, we tweaked our prices today just to reduce it. Because the point now is, every business person that calls me and like, what's up? I'm like, see, the aim is not making profit in this period. The main aim is to stay available, stay online, stay sustainable till COVID ends. You don't want your business to shut down now. So whatever you can do, if it's just that you're making money to sustain yourself, please, that's what you should do. This is the time to increase your prices or have one funny mode of dealing with customers. You need everybody right now. So the aim is, don't think of profits. For instance, in our fish market, because our fish market actually deals with hotels, bars, those mini joints, because that's where we sell our fish, because we sell live product. You get? So now that those market is closed, we have to look for something else. And if you're going to branch into another phase of market that you have not been in, you have to be very, very, how do I put it, price conscious. You get? And now, if that was during when things were good, it's easy to go in. But now that there's a COVID mentality around, people are trying to save money. People don't know how long this will go. People are saying it's till October. We're saying it's till November before things stabilize. The government might reopen the markets in some few weeks. Nobody knows. So for me, it's like the government has to come in to cushion the effect on both sides. They are giving a lot of relief systems to people so that they can actually have things to eat. So if the government is coming to buy up the products from the farmers, that's a good way. So they're easily buying up these products from the farmers. They're taking it off from them, giving them access to the market. They're being marketed and say, okay, fine, you guys can sell like this, or you can subsidize your price. We'll pay XYZ for this. Then you can allow the buyers to actually pay XYZ. So for me, I don't know how it's going to work, but I just feel that the only connecting bridge is the government in this space, because the people will keep on, if COVID extends, buying power will reduce on a daily basis. And farmers might still not have access to produce, or if they have the willing power to produce, nobody will buy them.
You're on mute.
I made the mistake. I mirror those thoughts, Jesse. Thanks a lot for providing those details. I guess I'll just tangent now and ask, in light of what Jesse has just said, do you think there is a role for policy to play? Because we know that in Nigeria, fairly similar in Kenya as well, there have been a number of government policies, even capital schemes like the CBN Anchors Borrower Scheme, specifically in Nigeria. I mean, some can debate how effective those things have been, but given that the government does have a role to play to really ensure stability, because, Jesse has said buying power has reduced, but we still have to eat. We might be at home, but regardless, we still have to eat. What mechanisms do you think could work to really help facilitate continuous production?
I think from a government point of view, there's a distinct difference between providing policies and implementing them. And I think what the issue we have right now is the implementation. And it's all great to have a lot of things to say, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but we actually need to see it on the ground. When you look at logistics and transportation, if you go to any supermarket right now in the stores, the shelves are looking very empty. But at the same time, we have farmers in different states saying we have so much to sell, we just need it to be moved. So there's a disconnect. And yes, government will say that it's free movement for those essential workers, but on the ground, there are issues. Transporters can't move without harassment or being stopped on the road. So we need to enforce the policies that we say that are out there. They need to be practical and they need to be seen on the ground. And I think at the same time, we have to look into private sector and public sector partnerships for growth. We need to see transparency and accountability. There's a lot of money that has gone into COVID-19. We need to know where that money is going, how is it being used, who's managing it, who's accountable, what roles and responsibilities does each player have in this ecosystem. We need to be able to evaluate impact. We need to know at the end of the day, this much money has gone to this and this is the result. Well, this is why it didn't work. But I think we're missing the sense of implementing what we say. And I think that needs to be brought to the fore, not just in Nigeria. It's ongoing in many different countries. I'm sure it's the same in Kenya. But I think on a practical level, if we have these policies, you should be able to purchase food at a supermarket, and farmers should be able to distribute across states or even within their states.
Great. Well, policy and implementation, two very different things. So yeah, that's very true. And we are notorious for coming up with policies and 2020 targets, 2030 targets, and never meeting those targets. So I think, now more than ever, it's very important. And I think another issue as well is the fact that borders are closed. So you can't really run to another place, which is one thing that I guess the well-off Africans, people would say, or the middle class, the high class, they would run away and go to healthcare abroad or just take a holiday from the situation. But that can't really happen. So we really have to look inwards and fix the system. So I'll come to you, Noah, because Kenya has done much better than Nigeria when it comes to agriculture. It makes up a bigger percentage of your economy in terms of actually generating wealth, generating income. What have you seen that has actually worked to help you get to that point as a country?
I think actually, I think I'd just like to comment a few things on what Jesse and Ify has commented, and then I'll mention that. So I think, number one, food security is never about food. You know, I think that's a term that was coined to really make us believe that food security is about food. No, I don't think, because how many farmers have the number of farmers that have come across that are throwing tomatoes or throwing this, you know. So I think from where I stand is that food security is about affordability, just the same thing as Jesse said. It's not about availability. It's about affordability. How many people, if somebody has $1, equivalent is 100 shillings in Kenya, will they pay for bus fare? Will they pay for airtime? Or what will they pay for food? So right now it is being affected even much negatively because of, and it's not because food is not available. I don't like touching government at all, but I think COVID-19, and I hope it will not extend to be COVID-20 and COVID-2021 in Africa. I think it did not, many times I've heard that COVID has actually showed the weakness of the healthcare industry, healthcare policies. But I think what COVID has really brought out in Africa, I think mostly even in Kenya and East Africa, is the weak government food policies. We don't have any food policies. We have very good research documents, but we don't have anything, because you don't see a Minister of Agriculture coming for the briefings, the Minister of Health. We don't see that. That's already a weakness. Again, what Ify has said is very important. Private sector, we have the biggest role to play. Seed companies, partnering with farmers, fertilizer companies, transport and logistics companies. We have to look at how best to do this. Government will do policy. Policy will take 5 to 10 years. Next, new administration, new policies, but farmers and people have to eat. What Kenya has done very well, again, I think it is the fact that most of the farmers that I have come across do not even know any government policy in agriculture. So we took it upon ourselves to make sure that we have our own internal, probably I can say, policies, our own internal way that we operate. We formed a lot of partnerships with the seed companies, like for me personally, as well as some of the farmers that in the Africa Farmers Club community have benefited a lot. For example, from a program called Good Growth Plan, where it's actually a plan where a company like Syngenta, they've come and offered training for us, like ourselves in the farmers, where we are offering training, extension services to farmers and showing them really how to really do and practice agriculture as a business and not just a farm. The other thing that has really helped us is our mobile telephone communication, as well as the spread of data, because you can get information anytime. Before you reach an agrovet or an agro shop, you will know which variety of tomato can you plant in a certain area. And then logistics has also helped a lot. But over and over, I think, is the information that we came out and decided, as much as I'm growing maize, which is a staple crop in Kenya, I want to increase from 2 bags of maize per acre to 5 bags. And so that quest for information, and also getting a few willing people to partner with to make sure that this information goes out to farmers has really been effective.
Great, that sounds really good. Thanks, Noah. Lots of interesting points across the board, and I do hope that this starts to get folks thinking. And when I say folks, this is existing farmers who are probably not open to technology. I mean, Farmkart has adopted technology, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why they're faring so well and actually still being able to trade in these very challenging times, and also get the government to start thinking of ways that they can help the food industry. Ada Osakwe of Newly Juice has actually been a big advocate in the SME space in agri-food business, and actually prompted banks and was a voice to be heard. So yeah, I definitely take your point that private sector as SMEs, they have a role to play. Even Nourishing Africa Sahel have also played roles in that as well. So for closing remarks, we've come up to half an hour. It'll be just good to go around again asking, what opportunities do you see in a post-COVID world? We don't know when that is, but of course, there will be a new normal. I doubt things would return to the way they were previously. No one knows what the future will look like, but what opportunities do you foresee, and how for anyone who is in agriculture or thinking of going into agriculture, perhaps an existing farmer who hasn't embraced technology, or someone who is actually maybe unemployed as a result of this pandemic, or just generally interested in going into agriculture? What opportunities do you foresee in a post-COVID world, and what would be your advice to actually start taking advantage of that now, from today? If I start with you, Jesse.
All right. I think there's a lot, honestly. I really, sometimes when people always ask, okay, where do I plug in? Where's the new opportunity in that? Our cultural space is huge. As in, I really don't even know where to even point people to. You just have to, for those who have actually, because recently people have now seen that, okay, oil is not working, the soil is the next option. And so since oil is not working, soil is the next option. I'm like, yeah, but there's a lot of things. We've been here for a while and we understand the challenges already. So pushing money into this space is not what we want. That's not the real, yes, it's going to help, but money is not going to solve the problem, right? So if I'm going to say any advice for that, is just understand the value chain and see where you can fit in. Just choose the value chain that you think is fine and you think you can offer a lot of value to, and just stay there. That's what I think.
You're muted.
I keep making that mistake. If you any thoughts on that?
I think from my end, what I would say is that while we're in this period of lockdown and movement restrictions, it's important to brush up on your skills. If you're not in the agriculture space, or you need to learn, or even if you're in the agricultural space, you can never not know enough. So I would suggest going. There's so many online courses available right now, whether it's tech-based because you want to incorporate, if you're already in the sector and you're a business owner, I would suggest brushing up on your IT skills, because we're definitely going to need it moving forward. I would also suggest that people should think about new ways to engage, because if you look at something as basic as training of smallholder farmers, we're not going to go back to the physical ways we used to train smallholder farmers. We need to think about new robust tools and resources that we can use to train farmers and equip them with the new tools they will need for a COVID world. So it's important that we think of new ways and not try and adapt the old ways moving forward. And that cuts across the borders, from farmers to entrepreneurs. If you're a paid employee, if you work in a business, everybody needs to shift their mindsets and do so in a way that you're developing yourself and you are creating a space for others to do the same, or to help others come on board, because we're going to move forward collectively. We can't do it alone. So we need to carry everyone on board in doing so.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Ify. So Noah, if I come to you, last but not least.
Oh, I think a lot has been said, but I think right now, as Jesse said, everybody has realized that the only place they can run to is to the soil. And it is interesting because in Kenya, most of the big, I can say like the top politicians, everybody who retires goes back to the soil. But now even the young people are getting to the soil. And Jesse has said something very interesting. Check yourself, look what part of the value chain that you want to get into. But for me, just to add something small, is basically very simple. Farming is not where you run away to as a side business or a source of income. Farming is going to be a business. For you to really succeed getting into this and post-COVID, and is actually looking at farming from a business perspective, looking at what you really want to do. Do you want to get into the farm and dig and put fertilizer, or do you want to be part of the value chain, as Jesse has mentioned? So for me, for those who want to join farming now, and also adding on what Ify has said, look at farming as a business, but also look at what other tools are available, because now you can actually engage. We have a lot of time now. Those who are not going to the office every day, you can join some of these communities, listen to some of these webinars, and just understand and ask questions. Is farming for me? If it's not for you, support a local farmer.
Awesome. I really love that. If farming is not for you, support a local farmer. So thanks again, Jesse, Ify, and Noah, for all your time. I'm sure this will provide value to somebody. And for me, at least starting with the COVID, I had lots of anxiety. As Noah said, would I get it? Would I die? Will the world end? I don't think the world is going to end. And if it does end, worry is probably not going to be the solution. So hopefully these tips would help somebody. And I really do wish you all well in all your respective businesses. I really do admire all your individual businesses. And this is really why it was important to bring everyone and really have this very productive conversation, I'll say. So thank you again. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear your face mask, and hopefully we would get through this together.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Safe.